Going back to the show, welcome again. We have a very special guest here with us today, Mr. Silva, Rennie Silva. We're thrilled to have you here. And I would like to start by asking you a bit about yourself. Can you tell us about yourself, your background, and your current career, and your role here in Iraq?
Certainly. Well, good morning, Mohammed. Thank you for having me. It's great to be back on the program. I am a diplomat at the U.S. Embassy here in Baghdad, and I'm from the United States, of course. I was born and raised in the state of Massachusetts. I'm married. My wife is also a career diplomat. She's working in Washington at the moment. And I've been with the U.S. Department of State for about a decade.
Wow.
In a variety of roles. But I'm very lucky to serve right now as an economic officer here at the embassy in Baghdad.
Wow, that's really impressive. So you've been here in Iraq for how long?
I've been here almost 1 year.
Okay.
And I am the Environment, Science, Technology, and Health Officer at the embassy. We call it ESTH. It's a very interesting portfolio, and it's particularly important right now because it captures some of the most urgent challenges that Iraq is facing, especially when we look at issues like climate change and water insecurity. And of course, these are not just challenges for Iraq. They're also challenges for the United States and for countries around the world. And the United States and the U.S. government is very eager to work with countries like Iraq to develop solutions and address these issues.
So your current role is mainly focuses on the environment aspect of and economic aspect with by collaboration with Iraq, correct?
That's right.
All right.
So environment, science, technology, and health covers a very broad range of issues. In any given day, we might talk about issues not just like climate change and water, but of course the COVID-19 pandemic, and looking at issues like technology and how they're shaping the economy in countries like Iraq. But of course, here we know that water is an immensely important issue, as well as climate change.
Correct.
And when you read the headlines, if you read the headlines around the world today, even in the United States, you see there are wildfires in Canada, and they have significantly affected the air quality.
In New York.
That's right.
Yeah.
In fact, almost across the entire east coast of the United States.
Wow.
And so everywhere we look, we see evidence that these are problems that can't wait.
Yeah.
And we need to work together and to use all of our talents and all of our faculties to address the problem.
Okay.
And so the embassy here in Baghdad works across the Iraqi government in a variety of ways to help Iraqis have better access to things like clean water. Last summer, we trained a group of Iraqi government officials and water experts who traveled to the United States to see how we're adapting to growing water scarcity in the American West.
That's fascinating. Well, I mean, this matters a lot to locals here in Iraq because water is becoming a serious issue year after year, and as you said, water scarcity is becoming a real issue here. So, what gave you? How did you start? How did you choose, let's say, to pursue this career path?
So I'm very happy to have the opportunity to work on this issue set here because, as it turns out, I actually started my academic studies in this field, looking at environmental challenges, studying environmental science in the United States. My career as a diplomat started in a program called the Peace Corps. I was a volunteer English teacher in Cambodia, of all places, for 2 years. And it was a program that was actually started by President Kennedy in the early 1960s and continues to this day. And it showed me what a difference public service can make and how important institutions can be in developing solutions to the problems that we're facing.
Wow. So when you said 1960s, I thought you don't look that old, but then I realized. All right. So when was this? How many years ago?
So the Peace Corps was actually started in 1961, and it was one of the first programs that John F. Kennedy started after he became president. And it all started with a speech late one night on a college campus where he appealed to young people and emphasized that the only way free societies can succeed is if people think about more than themselves, and they consider how their careers can not just advance individuals, but how they can move societies together forward.
That's really inspiring. Well, I'm sure on day-to-day basis, you face multiple issues at work, or maybe lots of concern when it comes to the environment and the situation, maybe of the globe, the global warming, and all other issues that we read about in headlines. But how do you keep a positive mindset with handling so many challenges on daily basis?
I think inspiration is really important. I always try to find people who have defied the odds, have made a difference, and have compelling stories. I love radio. It's great to be back on Radio 1. And I was thinking on the way over here from the embassy about a broadcaster and a DJ that I used to listen to when I was a kid named Casey Kasem, who was actually a Lebanese American whose family emigrated from Lebanon to the United States and who became one of the most famous DJs in American history. And one of the consistent messages that he shared with his listeners is the importance of having a positive attitude. He used to say, "Keep your feet planted firmly on the ground,
Yeah.
and look towards the stars." And we won't always achieve all of our goals,
Yeah.
but it's immensely important that we find people who inspire us and push us to strive for more.
I like it. Keep your feet on the ground and look at the stars.
That's right.
All right, that's really nice. So you currently work physically in the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, correct?
That's right.
How is it like there?
We're very lucky to have an embassy where from our offices you have views of the Tigris River. And of course, this is very much a part of the work that I do every day because we're talking about water issues. We're
Yeah.
talking about these, some of the oldest rivers in the world and the important role they play. But we have a number of sections that represent various offices, various parts of the U.S. government. And what we try to do is to take a holistic approach and look at how we can work across the U.S. government and across the Iraqi government to ultimately make lives better for people in Iraq and for people in the United States.
All right, magnificent. So you've been here in Iraq for about a year, and I'm sure you've encountered some situations that might have stood out. Anything that's funny or special in particular?
I come from a part of the United States that has very cold weather, and the weather is very warm in Iraq,
Yeah.
especially right now.
Yes.
That's a big adjustment for me. But I try not to miss any opportunity to have conversations with Iraqis in every setting and from every group and from every segment of society. That is what makes diplomacy so exciting, and that's what's so important, I think, about the work that we do, is that it's about reaching people where they live, understanding what matters to them, and highlighting how we can make a difference together. In any given day, when you're a diplomat, one day you might talk with a senior government official who works in the Iraqi government on water issues. And the next day you might talk to a farmer who's growing pomegranates in Diyala and is facing the everyday challenges that we talk about here in Baghdad. And so part of diplomacy is creating the space for those conversations to take place and developing those relationships. Of course, sometimes that even means having a physical space. We love the fact that we're very close to opening an American space here at the station in the very building where we are recording this interview.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a really important place for people to come together and to develop those connections.
Well, I'm thrilled. I'm very excited for it. So I hope it works out. So you've tried Iraqi cuisine so far. Have you ever got a chance to try any local food here, or
I have.
at all?
I have.
Okay.
So I love fish, and so mazgoof is, of course, a very important Iraqi dish. And I come from one of the states in the United States that produces the most fish, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So I've really enjoyed getting to see how Iraqi fish is
Yes.
prepared, and it's delicious.
Yeah, it is very delicious. So you mentioned you've been to Cambodia. Any other countries you've been to? Any particular experiences that you encountered in any specific country that stood out to you as well?
I've been very lucky, Mohammed, to travel around the world as a visitor, as a student, as a volunteer English teacher, and now as a diplomat. And those experiences have certainly shaped who I am and how I look at the world. And the more I travel, the more I see that it's not about any one country, but it is about the things that bring us together and how much we have in common and how you can transcend differences, whether we are talking about ethnicity, religion, gender, or other aspects of who we are, and how much we are united by wanting the same things. Wanting a brighter future for our families, wanting a clean environment, something that we're talking about here today and relates to the work that we do here at the embassy in Iraq, and how those things form the foundation for a shared vision for the future. I think that's really important. And I think my experience in other countries, a number of countries, including some here in the region, have also shown me, they've made me more optimistic. When you look at where Iraq is today and what's happening. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to visit Kuwait. There was a time when no one could have envisioned that there would be connections, energy connections, for example, between Iraq and Kuwait. Today, that is becoming a reality. You see the electricity interconnection, not just between Kuwait, but between a number of Iraq's neighbors. Yeah. That is going to have positive effects on millions of people, not just in Iraq, but across the region. And I think that comes from having those opportunities to travel and to talk to people.
I really admire the positive mindset that you have and how positive you are about given all the challenges that, as we mentioned, that you face and have to handle on a daily basis, and given your career, it's really inspiring how positive you are. All right, so many of our listeners are from the younger slice of or segment of society, so they're younger listeners. And if you are to end this conversation by giving them one piece of advice, what would this be?
Well, that's a great question. My first piece of advice would be keep listening to Radio 1.
Oh. Thank you.
And my second piece of advice, all kidding aside, would be very much part of or relates to what we've been talking about here today, which is how important it is to, as you said, to stay optimistic. Pessimism and cynicism is, in a way, a form of surrender. The world now more than ever needs people who are willing to find their optimism, willing to envision a brighter future, and to work together towards it. A mentor of mine gave me a very good piece of advice that throughout my career and my life has served me very well, which is that institutions are made up of people. And that means that we can change institutions, and we can change institutions whether we're talking about an embassy where I work, whether we're talking about a government or beyond. These are opportunities every day that we have to make a difference, but we have to rise to the challenge. And I want everyone who's listening out there to know that every day we have opportunities to be the positive change. And I really hope that our listeners today go out and find them.
Well, thank you so much for that. That was Mr. Rennie Silva. Thank you so much for being with us today. And we hope definitely to see you again.
Thank you so much, Mohammed.
Thank you.